Good morning again, everybody, and welcome to the sermon. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. And while we're glad in it, we are going to be exploring the topic of resentment and forgiveness. Major things to be discussing as Christians and just as human beings. The last time I led the sermon, we explored the first 3 steps of the 12-step recovery program and how that aligned with Jesus' instructions to forget ourselves, pick up our cross and follow him. So this week, we're going to be exploring step 4 of the 12-step recovery program. I'm not going to go back into what the 12-step recovery program is all about because it's not really necessary for this sermon, but it is what it says on the tin, basically. And step 4 in the recovery program tells us that we must make a fearless and searching moral inventory of ourselves, right? So we must look at ourselves without any fear, really dig deep. And part of that process involves identifying and confessing any resentments that we have. So the word resentment basically means to feel again, to feel pain again. It might, when you resent something or someone or a time or an experience, it takes you right back to that place again. It takes you right back to that experience and you feel the pain that you felt all over again. That's what the word resentment means. So unless you're a person that has never experienced pain in your life, it's probably likely that you'll be carrying a lot of resentments that you probably don't even know about. So resentments can be big or they can be small. The big resentments might be easier to identify. So they're usually things like relating back to a period in your life where you've experienced extreme hurt or extreme pain. Maybe you've been neglected or abused or betrayed, or somebody's let you down in some way, shape or form, and it's caused you huge pain. So these are huge resentments that you carry, maybe potentially more obvious in your life, right? Then throughout your day, and maybe less obvious, is these tiny wee resentments that build up as the day goes on. So maybe you don't like the way the cashier looked at you, or maybe you resent your boss because they gave you into trouble for being 5 minutes late, or you might resent someone because they didn't put something back where they should have put it back. So these are tiny wee resentments that can build up throughout your day. So either way you look at it, whether it's the big resentments or the smaller resentments, what happens is they start to build bricks, okay? Bricks of resentments. And before you know it, you've got this wall. You've got this wall around you that either is designed to protect you from any further hurt or pain, or it's designed to help you attack people before they can attack you. So hurt them before they hurt you. That's what a buildup of resentments create, okay? And what resentments do is they keep us bound to that pain. They keep us bound to that experience. They keep us enslaved to that hurt. And people who are bound up, people who are enslaved, are not free people. So in essence, there is no way that you can be free indeed, as the Bible tells us, if you carry any resentments in your heart. And then we go one step further. When we are bound to pain, a past pain, it creates like a cycle of painful energy, right? That pain is just going to keep going round in a cycle until it's dealt with, because you're still attached to it. And it's like the old saying goes, hurt people can then go on to hurt people. So unless we deal with the pain, we cannot stop the cycle. And more so, we might even start to, while we're trapped in this energy of pain, we might start to become like the person or the thing or the experience that we resent, because we haven't cut ourselves off from the thing that's enslaving us. But it's hard because when you resent someone, you almost feel like you've got a sense of control over the situation. Maybe you feel like holding on to resentment is in some way punishing them, or it's getting some sort of payback by not letting go. However, that couldn't be further from the truth. Resenting someone really has no impact on them whatsoever. It only affects us. It only damages us. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Nelson Mandela once said, resentment is like drinking poison and then expecting your enemy to die. Resentment will only ever hurt us. And what's really interesting about resentments is that they can fester in us from early childhood, and we don't even know about it. It's almost like bondage or chains or something that are completely invisible. We're like ignorant to them. We don't even know that they're there. And sometimes we find ourselves, we can be triggered by things and we don't even understand why, because they're buried so deep inside of us because we haven't dealt with the resentment. So for example, we could be 85 years old and still feeling the pain of something that happened to us when we were 5 years old, still stuck in that resentment. We could be living in a whole other continent and still feeling the painful memories of our birthplace. We could be in a brand new, lovely relationship and still feeling the pain of a relationship from 20 years ago. Because resentment will follow you wherever you go, because it's in here, right? So no matter where you are in the world, no matter what job you're in, no matter what relationship you're in, if you don't deal with the resentment, it's always going to follow you. Unless we find a way to deal with them. And the only way is, you guessed it, forgiveness. We are commanded to forgive by our God we follow as Christians. And that's clear as day in many places in the Bible. But let's look at Matthew chapter 18, verses 21 to 22. And I'm going to read this here, okay? It says, "Then Peter came to him, Jesus, and said, 'Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Up to 7 times? Jesus said to him, 'I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. And let's get something clear about forgiveness before we move on. Forgiveness is not about being a doormat. It's not about inviting other people to continually neglect you or abuse you or, harm you or let you down or whatever. That's not what it's about. Forgiveness is actually for us. Forgiveness is about cutting that bondage, that tie that you have to that pain, that past hurt, that resentment in your life, so that you can be free indeed. It's about stopping this cycle of darkness and pain, just saying enough is enough. I need to take control here, and the only control I have over this resentment, over this pain, is through forgiveness. So we're shining a light onto that darkness, onto that pain, onto that resentment, the minute we choose to forgive. Forgiveness is about peace. Forgiveness is about an inner peace. And if we go back to Nelson Mandela, he also said that it's courageous people that don't fear forgiveness for the sake of peace. Anybody can hold on to resentments their whole life. That doesn't require bravery or courage or strength. It takes strength to be able to forgive people. It takes strength, real strength, to say, you know what, that did hurt. That was painful. That might have even broke me for a certain amount of time. But I am choosing to forgive that person, that experience, that time, that whatever, so that I can experience a freedom. Let's for a wee minute take ourselves back to the life of Jesus, right? In Jesus' last days, and we just watched it in that powerful worship music video there of Jesus on the cross, right? But before he even got to the cross, Jesus was betrayed, He was abandoned by people very, very dear and close to him. He was tortured. And then he was murdered. He suffered a horrendous death on that cross. And I can't even imagine, I don't think anybody can imagine the pain that he must have been in those final moments. It's every time I see Jesus die on the cross and his torture beforehand, it moves me to tears. And I don't say that flippantly. I'm genuinely distressed by it, because I can't even imagine the pain that he was in. And to do it all for us just makes it even that much more painful to watch. Anyway, so while Jesus was on the cross, dying a slow, painful death, it's recorded that some of his last words were, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." They don't know what they're doing. Even in the face of extreme pain and suffering, Jesus chose forgiveness. He chose it. The most courageous act that the world has ever seen was in that moment on that cross. Now, if we were to play with the story a wee bit here, right? Imagine that you had never read the Bible, and imagine this is your first time reading the Bible. Imagine your friend said to you, go and check out this guy, Jesus. I really think that he's going to speak to you. Okay, go and read the Bible. So you go, you start to read how Jesus lived, right? You start to get a sense of who he was. And you start to think, okay, this guy's awesome. It starts off well. He's a good man. He shows respect to people that other people wouldn't show respect to. He shows love all the time. He heals the sick. He performs miracles. He's humble. He speaks wise words. He's gentle. He's kind. This guy seems like he really knows what he's doing. He just seems like a decent guy. I want to get to know him more. So it's all going well, right? You're buying into the story. Fast forward to the cross. Imagine then that Jesus was dying on the cross, and some of his last words were, "Father, do not forgive these people. They know exactly what they're doing. I'm in so much pain here. I can never, ever forgive these people for what they've done to me." Would that be a man that you would want to devote your life to? Would that story make sense to you? Would you trust Jesus if you read that he was also bound by resentments and couldn't forgive people or chose not to forgive people? Would you be able to forgive if Jesus didn't forgive? I don't think so. I don't think anything would make sense if Jesus had held on to resentment while he was dying on the cross. Just wouldn't make sense. Now, I'm not saying for 1 minute that being free from the bonds of resentment is easy, because it's not. But what's your other option? You want to stay hurt? You want to stay bitter? You want to stay trapped and bound up your whole life? Or do we want to be free people? Do we want to be happy, forgiving, merciful, healthy people? And the last thing I'll say is that, trust me, I know this stuff is hard. I know that forgiving people is hard. I've been hurt many, many times in my life. Sometimes really big hurts. Sometimes I've been really broken. Sometimes smaller hurts. And I've also caused people a lot of hurt. So I know what it's like to carry resentments against other people, and also to resent yourself for what you've caused other people. But I also know what it's like to choose forgiveness. I also know what it's like to be forgiven. And I also know, categorically know, that forgiveness works. every single time. I have chosen to forgive so many people on so many occasions, even when it's not been easy, even when I've not wanted to, but I just knew that I had to. And in making that choice, I had a wonderful sense of freedom, a wonderful sense of love inside me, a wonderful sense of I'm doing the right thing. I'm at peace with myself in making this choice. I feel as though I'm close to God when I'm making the choice to forgive. It works every time. And in making that choice to forgive, I've been able to cut the ties of that pain, that past pain. I've been able to deal with those resentments, and they don't have an influence in my life anymore today. They don't influence my thoughts, my feelings, my behaviours. They're just completely cut. That energy has not been allowed to be fed. Nothing is feeding that energy of pain and resentment anymore, because I've addressed it and I've chosen forgiveness. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I don't have any resentments anymore, because that would be a lie. I do. I still deeply resent a couple of people, and I still have a few resentments within experiences that I need to address. I know that. But the positive about that is that I've acknowledged that, I've accepted that, and I'm willing to do the work to work through those resentments with the help of God. And that's the key thing here. Nobody expects you just to, wake up one day and say, I'm choosing not to resent anyone or anything in my life. And then you wake up the next day and boom, everything's happy. Because it doesn't work like that. There is some work required on our part. And this is what they talk about in step 4 of the 12-step recovery program. They give you practical steps, practical advice that you can take in order to help you through identifying and addressing these resentments. So one of the things that is really helpful is to write them down. And when you write them down, sometimes you identify a pattern. In fact, most times you identify a pattern of why you resent those people or those experiences or those places. You will see a pattern develop. And then after you write them down, it's a good idea to discuss them with someone that you really trust. Be careful about this. I always say this. Make sure you've got a good relationship with a person. It's always a good idea to discuss your resentments with God. Absolutely. He's the most important person in this process. Always, always take them to God. And ask God for help. Forgiving people can be painful. Even if you feel like you can't do it, ask God for the strength and see what happens, because anything you can't do naturally, God can definitely do supernaturally. And finally, this is one of the trickiest parts. Sometimes these words are even hurtful when they come out your mouth. Pray blessings over the people that hurt you. Pray blessings over the people that you have these resentments towards. I know that sounds ridiculous, but Jesus tells us to do it. Bless those who persecute us. And when we get into the habit of doing that, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, I don't know how it happens. It doesn't even matter how it happens. It just does happen. And what happens is you soon become a more liberated person. You soon begin to feel that sense of you are free indeed. And you soon begin to feel like you're walking in partnership with God. You're living the life that God wants you to live for you, so that you can be healthy and you can be happy and you can be free. So my prayer for us all this morning is that we find the strength, or ask for the strength, to identify and address our resentments and forgive the things or the people that have caused those resentments. My prayer is that we become, as individuals and as a church, people of forgiveness, people of mercy, and people of love, even when it feels uncomfortable. I pray that over us all, and I hope that you're well, and I hope to see you soon, and I hope that God's words have blessed you this morning. Take care.